Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how I've hand sewn these clamshell shapes together without using English paper piecing or without the need for any templates or foam behind them. This is a really easy method and it's just using these templates. You can even make the templates yourself, but I purchased these off eBay. They're a set of templates. They come with the outside and the inside, lots of different shapes and sizes. The only thing I'd say is the seam allowance isn't 1/4 of an inch, it's less than 1/4 of an inch, so use these templates on something that you're not going to wash very often, and therefore you don't have to worry about the seams fraying or anything like that. So this is the clamshell template that I've selected. You remove like that brown paper that's on it. Ignore these two marks on the side, it's just a centre mark that you need to worry about. And that centre mark just marks a line that you need to mark up. So I'm drawing around my template. I've got a 600 weight sandpaper underneath just to keep the template and the fabric smooth, because you find that they'll tend to slip if you don't use any sandpaper underneath. So I've just gone around that template. I've made sure I've done the lines extra dark so that they show up on camera, and then I cut it out with scissors, but you can use a rotary cutter around the outside of the template. They're perfectly fine to do that, but if you make your own templates then you'll need to use scissors. So what we do is we get the outer corner that I'm showing here and you line it up with the centre mark. Sometimes I like to use a pin, sometimes I get a good eyeball on it. Line it up with the centre mark and finger press it and add a pencil line there. Repeat the same for the top. Depending on which piece you're joining, you'll need to mark either the convex or the concave, and you'll see that in just a moment. So essentially you're marking the halfway point and then the quarter way, and that will just help you ease the seams in together. So we're doing here on the concave the same thing. I'll put a pin through the corner so you can make sure that the corners are lined up. So that piece is going to join to that one like so. We're going to pin in the corner, so the pin straight through the corner, and then rotate the piece and pin the halfway mark to the end on this case. My biggest piece of advice is line up the raw edges together in the way that you will want them to sit when it's actually finally pieced. So you want the raw edges to be joining each other. So here you can see I'm going to slightly rotate the piece just so that raw edge, there we go, just rotate it so that it's sitting correct, and then just mark it. So you do the two outside edges and you can see it's bunched up and you think there's no way this is going to fit, but trust me, it is. It works together absolutely perfect. And then you're going to line up the centre points. Put a pin through there. And what you want to make sure is that you're on that line that you draw on the inside of the template. That's the sewing line. If you haven't seen any of my other videos in the series, I'm going over the basics of how to hand piece, and this is slightly different to English paper piecing in that there's no templates. You simply draw a sewing line which is 1/4 of an inch in from the seam allowance, and you just sew on that line with a running stitch. It's very easy, really straightforward, and it's really relaxing actually. So I've done a few videos on this so far, including different templates and other shapes, so do check out my channel to watch those if you haven't already. So we've added a centre pin, like a quarter pin, and then the outer pins. I remove the very first pin and drive my needle straight through where the pin was, making sure it's lined up front and back. This is a single layer of thread and it's just knotted at the end. I'm using black so that you can see my stitches, but I would recommend using a coordinating thread just in case it shows up. And then all you're going to do is take small running stitches. so quite small. You'll see the length of the stitches in a moment. You're constantly checking the front and the back to make sure that you're stitching on that stitching line on both sides. And then every 3 or 4 stitches just take a back stitch just to keep it nice and secure, and you want to make sure that you're not pulling your stitches too tight because that will cause it to pucker up. So here you can see that I'm easing the 2 fabrics into each other, but because I'm doing it in the small sections, I've got so many pins holding it all together. It's really easy just to ease them together. And I just remove the pins as I'm going along, and then I put my needle back into the pin mark if I can do, because I know that it's bang on then. And you just do this running stitch all the way along, back stitching along the way. And see there, I'm not quite on the line, so I'm just going to pull back a little bit and give it a go again. What I'm doing as I am stitching with my left hand, I'm holding the seams in place and then also sliding the fabrics with my fingernail and my fingertip, just to make sure that I'm sliding them into the correct places. And then as we're approaching the last pin, I always do a back stitch before I arrive there, so I'm stopping slightly shy of the actual pin itself, and then I'm going to do a back stitch here, and then I'll remove the pin and then put my needle directly in the pinhole, front and back. And then I'll do a locking stitch, so you do a stitch and then put your needle through that stitch, put your needle through the loop and pull it tight. Sometimes you can put the needle through twice, just make sure you're going in the same direction, and that will knot it up nicely. And there you go, you've joined those together. And you can see just how small the stitches are. The smaller the needle, the smaller your stitches will be, and just keep practicing to make it neater. And then I'm doing them in blocks of 2, and then I'm joining those 2 together to make a block of 4, and then I'm just making a whole stack of these blocks of 4. You'll see them at the end, and then I'm just going to put them together in a project. So here again, we're marking that center point. You can do this at the beginning. You can even mark it on your template if you can get that accurately marked. I tried, but those were the marks I told you to ignore. So we're just marking those up. I'm just using a mechanical pencil, just a lead pencil, because lead does wash out. And it's on the reverse anyway. So we're going to do the same thing again, just lining up the seams in the correct orientation that they will end up. Put your pin all the way through, pretty much bang on there. It would probably be helpful for this if you have those small applique pins, but I haven't got any of those. These pins are by Prim and they're comfort grip pins, and they are really good. They're quite comfortable to hold. I'm quite the way off there, as you can see, so I'm just going to shimmy over straight into that centre line. And again, we've got quite a bit of a bulk to ease in, but you just do the exact same thing, match the centres, and then just put a pin in between the 2. If you have bigger clamshells, then by all means use more pins, however many pins you feel you need to ease in. You don't really get the thread caught on the pins and your fingers generally stay out of the way, so they're not too much of a hassle, the pins. If this is your first shape that you're trying doing the hand piecing, I would probably try one of my previous videos where the edges are straight rather than curves. Unless you need the curves for a specific project, then I would start with a straight one because they are a little bit easier. But I do think that these doing the hand piecing in this way is a little bit easier than doing it with English paper piecing, because you haven't got to worry about folding the papers under and creating a smooth edge when you're actually folding the fabric. So as you can see, as I'm stitching, I'm just constantly checking on the back just to make sure everything's lining up. Now I'm going to use these clamshells in a wall hanging design that I'm doing. Now I will be showing you in the next video how to applique the top line of these clamshells down, because that was quite straightforward, but I'll show you how to do the applique stitch and how to mark out the templates for doing the applique. But with these, you'll see at the end that you can arrange them in any type of configuration. You don't have to do them in 4s, you can just do them in 2s and then join those 2s however you like, or vice versa. You'll see at the end there's a little snippet of me just arranging them. Now when you get to this intersection, you've got 4 clamshells meeting. Okay, so all I've done there is a back stitch. When I get to the end, I'm going to line up the new pieces together. So the exact same process, just mark the corners way off there. That's why it's so good to put the pin in and check, because you think you're right but you're not, you're way off sometimes, so don't worry about that. Now I don't put a pin in the start with this one, but what you're going to do is you want to travel via the corners to that point, that piece that I just pointed at. So you go in and you go diagonally across just in the space. You don't stitch into the seam allowances or anything, and just pull tight through that joint, and then I'll come up on the front piece. So you go in on the back, just get everything lined up. So I think I've gone slightly off camera there, but you're just going from the back to the front, just slightly further than the corner point, because then you back stitch into the corner point and that will create a really nice tight corner. And just pull it tight, not too tight that you're gonna disrupt it, but just finger tight. And then just continue in the exact same process all the way to the end, where you just add a knot at the end. So there you have it, your 4 clamshells are now joined together and they transform once you give them a press. The seam allowances naturally want to go down, so don't press them in any different direction, just press them down. Give them a press on the back and then do the same on the front, and they'll be really nicely curved if you've done those small stitches. So there you go. And then this is the different layouts that you can do. You know, like I said, join them in whatever configuration is going to be best for the project that you have in mind. Or like me, I made these before I actually decided what I wanted to do, and there I was just pointing out you just stitch the 4 together. Now in a moment at the end of the video you'll see some links to either subscribe to my channel or watch any of my other videos, so I would greatly appreciate it if you wanted to do any of those things. And I will leave the link to the templates that I purchased from eBay in the description box below, but just remember what I said about the seam allowances not being quite what we would want them to be, so just use them cautiously.